What's up, everybody? Nice to see, well, not see, but nice to be with you guys again. I'm going to introduce Andy in a minute, but I just wanted to give us a little intro on this one. One, I've realized I really have to update that picture since I don't have hair anymore and it looks super weird. So yeah. Uh, but two, I want to kind of preface this one. Adam, who I work with, we were talking about how can we help you guys out? What would be a good subject to go over this month? And it was kind of what about all the tips and tricks people just miss? That's kind of like where we started with this. We didn't really know, and I was interviewing a couple of the TAEs and customer service people because they're the best in the company at that kind of stuff. And then I asked Andy for a couple of suggestions, and he sent me a wall of text that took me an hour to read. But the cool thing about Andy is Andy was a customer. Andy, we stole Andy. Comes over here. He's used Sumo, and now he's a TAE, and he's just a monster. He's so good at this stuff. So I just said, you know what? I don't need to do anything on this. Andy's going to do everything. But I did do one slide. So Andy, if you kick over one slide, because if you guys know me by now, there we go. This is a situation rep, right? So Andy's going to show us common tips going through customer to TAE. I'm always here just to make jokes, and we have to start a good talk with memes. So there are your two memes. Let's give them 10 seconds to read those because they're both quality memes. Besides that, though, I'm just going to hand it over to Andy. I'll probably make some comments here and there and ask some questions. But Andy, take it away.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Bit of a shock to be asked to get more involved, but hopefully we'll have some good tips and tricks around what I see, not only as previous customer for 10 plus years, but also from what I see from my customers now. I've been at Sumo 11 months. Before that, I was principal engineer at large financial organizations as well as large retail organizations. So mix of SRE, DevOps, DevSecOps security in AWS and data center and GCP was my background. So yeah, so we're going to go through a load of different tips. It's a mixture of some slides and some real-time demos. So wish me luck using our demo environment. Any questions as we go, just go through it. Please put your hand up or shout out on the chat and we can go through. Right, let's get started. Okay, we're going to start with search optimization. Okay, it's sort of split into various different topics as we go through it, but search optimization, if you have a look at the top right, you can see how we usually set out a query. We have metadata, parsing statements to pull out fields. We have filters, where clauses, and then we have aggregations and formatting to make it look pretty. And what I've done for each of these topics is I've gone through and thought, well, what do people miss? When I'm doing enablement training with my customers, what do people miss? How do we show them to do things in a different way? How do we make them most efficient and use all the features of Sumo? So first things first, okay, we're going to talk about finding our data and narrowing down data set and using metadata to help. Okay, we're going to look at keyword searches and using where clauses as keywords to improve performance. We're then going to look at the Field Explorer in the new UI and then go through and analyze some data directly. And it makes it much quicker to look at. And then we're going to quickly look at log reduce and time shift because they're not much utilized. More so than they were, but still not much of use. They're your needle in a haystack finders and things like that. Okay, so let me see if we can get the swapping to the real-time look working. So hopefully this works. Okay, let's start with the first one, finding your data and narrowing down your data set. Okay. For anyone who's not seen this before, this is our data collection page. Hopefully you're well used to looking at this and trying to see where your data is. What we tend to find in Sumo is you ingest the data into source categories and eventually into indexes and partitions. You'll hear of me use index and partition interchangeably, so they are the same thing. Okay. So key thing for anything is finding out how to find your data. So this is a great page to start with, the collection page. Okay. And realistically, it's a demo environment, so there's lots of different sources here. What we tend to want to see is we want to see source categories. Okay, so things like this, the source category is what we want to look for. And source categories are our way of grouping data together, so we can have, say 50 EC2 servers pushing logs to us, and they can all be pushed into the same source category, okay, and end up in the same index, so you can control the retention as well. Let me show you the partition screen. As you can see, various different partitions, the size of them, what source categories they contain, and how many days we're going to store them. So key thing is to find out where your data is, okay, and to make sure you can see these screens or know where your data is. So when you start searching, you can see, where, how to find stuff and where to look. Okay, so if we looked for, say, some Apache data, for instance, we could go in here, we could pull in some Apache data. Tell you what, let me just do. Okay, you can see Apache data, pretty basic Apache data, but the source category is the way you found the data. And you can also see some other metadata here around, looking at, where to find it. So this is in the default index. You can see the category is this. You can see how it's collected, and you can see lots of the actual messages as well. What we tend to do as well is, once you've got your source category and other metadata, you can see, you know, much easier where to search and how to narrow your search, how to make your search performant and the quickest it can be. Yeah. So what we do with keyword searches, which is next on our list, is, the aim of a keyword search is to make the query as fast as possible, and depending on what license model you have for Sumo, to make it as cheap to search as possible. I won't go into licensing here. There's lots of information around licensing that we can attach, and on our website around the documentation. All I'll do is going through this webinar is point out the differences where I need to, because it changes the way we search. Okay, so keyword searches. Yep, as I said, you can do source category, you can do index, you can do partitions, you can do, massive massive searches around here, and you can then do things like changing where clauses. So let me just give you an example of a where clause. It's going a little bit slow. So if, say, for instance, we were going to do a where clause on this data, not the best data to pick. Let me just find you better data. Apologies, I seem to have lost that screen. Let's use one of these. I don't know if that's my internet. Okay, better. That's better.
Real
Okay,
fast
so
now, Andy. All good. It's looking
yeah,
good.
that's better. Yeah. Sorry for the delays there. Okay. So if we're looking at source collection, if we're looking at how to look at, let's look at one that's easier to see rather than the Apache that's using FERs. Yeah. I seem to have some issues, which is
I think that's
typical.
just trial instead of trail.
Oh, sorry. Yes, you're right. Perfect. That's today's test.
That's right. I'm paying attention.
Okay. Apologies, having some issues with the right CloudTrail environment. Which I had working and now it's not. 2 seconds. Let me try this one.
we only have 15,000 options in our demo environment, so that's
Yeah, and I don't know why it's so slow. Typical that the demo gods are going to screw with me now.
absolutely.
Okay, this is better. Right, finally, I don't know why it's so slow. Must be my connection because everyone else seems okay. Okay, as you can see from this, yeah, what we can do, this is a source category. We've talked about how to find it. We've talked about don't worry about collector. That's another piece of metadata. We're not too worried about it today. But what we can do, if we are doing any where clauses, what we can do to make things quicker and to mean that it speeds up performance is just do a keyword search in the top line. Okay. So for instance, if we wanted to find this, yeah, we could find every record with a keyword search of timestamp. Now it will look across the whole raw message. It won't look at anything like a field or anything like that. So it would be timestamp existing anywhere in the message. Okay. And you can see that it's brought back just the timestamps. Okay. What we then do, if we then added, event time, yeah, as a where clause, yeah, it'll be a lot quicker. Okay. Okay, so we can make sure that the queries are as fast as they can be by using where clauses and also keywords with the same values as the where clause in the top line of the query because the data set being brought back will be much smaller. Okay. Let's move on to the Field Explorer, which is this. Just be aware in here, and a lot of people don't see, don't do, they see the raw message. What we tend to find is people then, because we're auto parsing JSON by default, tend to, people will pull out the source name, for instance, and we'll then get a source name field. But what they won't do is they won't tend to click on the actual name of it, which will give you actually an insight into the data that was found within the period of time that you ran the search. Okay, so we can see, okay, there's one account in here, one account ID. Yeah, we can see we've got a couple of databases. Yeah, so make use of this easy way of exploring your data because people always forget they can do that. They start trying to put keywords on the top. They try to put things on top. But this is a really easy way of seeing, the top values, the percentage of values over time, and also, just an easy way of analyzing your data and then working out what your next query needs to be. Okay, and every JSON field is automatically passed here. If you're doing a pass statement with a regex, that will also be able to, you'll also be able to do that here as well. Yeah, we can look at the namespace, we can look at top values, and it gives you an insight into how you then delve into the data more, and it's built the query for you. So a lot of customers don't tend to use that.
Yeah, I think
Um,
that's something to point out to our customers is people tend to kind of sit on one side of the fence. They try and either write everything out with their own queries or they try to only use the automated stuff. I think if you kind of push yourself out of your comfort zone and like explore a little bit, it can get a lot more efficient and easier to use.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, definitely. Right, let me look what else is there. Looking at the time. Yeah, we talked briefly about log reduce. Let me just show you that. You'll find a really good course on log reduce in the search called Search Mastery in the Learning Portal. Our training department have built that. It's really, really good. So I'd recommend doing that. You can see log reduce being used in this app here. You'll see that there's a lot of pattern matching going on. So it uses checks every line, it compares the lines, it makes sure you've got patterns, and you can then look at, needle in a haystack sorts of alerts. So when you see an alert, I haven't got an example of it, unfortunately, but if you see an alert and then you do a time compare, so you do a log reduce, and then say you do a time compare to the day before at the same time. So, 12 to 1 o'clock today compared to 12 to 1 o'clock yesterday. Yeah, if it's erroring now, you usually can use log reduce and time compare to say what's the difference between those two time windows in different days. And it's really an easy way of finding the needle in a haystack and finding time to recovery really quickly. Is that you can use the technology built into the logs platform to really speed up the alert response.
I've
Um,
also found that it's really an easy way if you have a ton of error logs and you're looking for, a CI/CD push or something like that. If it's
Yeah.
something you kind of have an idea of what you're you're going after, but you're not sure, man, it'll take, 100,000 error logs and put it into maybe three different things you got to look at. That's it.
Yeah, no, it's really good as well. Just it's good to actually check any regexes as well. If you're
Mm.
building a regex, try and pull some fields out. If you do that first, you can see what the patterns are. Yeah, make sure you've got the anchors right, etc. It's quite good for that as well. So lots of different use cases, really powerful. And one of those things that people forget. Um, on that note, we've got hundreds of operators as well for logs and metrics. So again, look at the documentation. There's lots of different ways. If you're thinking about trying to do something in a search, usually we'll have an operator that will help you make it easier. Okay, let's talk about efficient log ingestion. Okay. Um, I've split these out so we can talk about it through the slides. Okay, so a couple of things we find when you're ingesting the logs. Um, People forget we can filter hash or mask data on the way in to the HTTP source or the source type. We'll go through that. Okay. You know, there's a lot of value there, and we'll go through the detail of the value. We've also got OTel collection. You can do different things like sampling and better security patterns by central collection. And then you can use infrastructure code to build, or the API to build, use Terraform or the API code for Python or another language to set up your ingestion, your sources, your collectors, your business practices, your business logic. Okay, and you can do that all through code, and it massively reduces manual errors and supports change planning, of course, and de-risks certain changes. So let me look through just a few examples in these. I wasn't going to go through them because they're quite complicated. This is a Terraform example, just to prove you can do filters through Terraform. So the top one, Lambda logs, there is always three lines in that really don't get used for much. Okay. So you can strip them out most of the time. I'd recommend testing it in case you're doing something strange with those specific fields like reports, end and start. But most of the time, you don't need those lines for everything else to work and it to be useful. Okay. So you can exclude them on the source. Um, and it makes it much more efficient. You can do things like drop completely with regexes on the source, completely, this is an app mesh. Second one down, the drop envoy logs is an app meshing, but obviously any sidecar container, you could do the same. You can drop things that you don't really need in your logs, but might be too hard for your DevOps team to turn off at source, because they're sort of automated based on the framework they're using. Yeah, so things like drop service connections and its disconnections, that's a lot of noise that you can turn off. Okay, and we can hash things. So we can hash PII data, we can hash lots of different types of data, PAN numbers, all sorts on the way in. So you can be pretty confident that you've got data in there that's okay and relevant and no risk for compliance.
Hey, Andy, I missed a question when
Yeah.
you moved into this. Sorry. Do you have performance recommendations on log reduce? I've had trouble on larger data sets getting search uh, to complete with log reduce.
That's interesting. Okay. No, obviously the larger the data set, the more and the more changeable the expressions in the data set, then I guess is going to be slower. But if there is a performance problem, then definitely put a support ticket in would be a recommendation, and then we can trace it at the back end and see what's going on.
I will say, Thomas, when I have to use it on big, really big data sets, it takes, a while, and it almost feels like it's not going to end, but it has to build out those patterns on the back end for every single one of those things. So I think it's just a giant math equation. So
Yeah,
I think sometimes it's almost just better to leave it in a corner running, eat a
yeah.
sandwich, whatever.
Another use for source exclusion and include for that matter, depending on which way you want to do it. Say, for instance, you're seeing some data that shouldn't be ingested. I'd say it's PI as an example. You can put temporary fixes into excludes while you wait for a DevOps team or an engineering team to fix it at source. Okay. So if you see something that's not great, you can put an exclude into the source itself and then wait for the feature change to come through the CI/CD pipeline to fix it at source and not send it. So a belt and braces approach. I've also seen customers For production environments, on all the production sources, turn on off debug error log mode. Yeah, so they won't allow any debug to be ingested. Okay, again, that's something you just need to work through with your DevOps teams and your engineering teams. But I have seen that being used because they don't want, various different companies do different logging levels. I'd say it's something that we see is not overly efficient sometimes, depending on the maturity of the teams. So yeah, again, it's a belt and braces approach. You can do some work there to turn some features off that might make your life easier. Hotel collection. Okay. Our new latest and greatest way of collecting data, logs, metrics, and traces. We're talking mainly around logs and traces here. You can do some central collection for Hotel. You can do some really good customized setups for Hotel as well. This one, for instance, is very similar to the source filtering, but it can filter data at the Hotel collector level. Again, to not send it, again, a belt and braces approach to make sure you're sending the right data. But what we can also do is we can centrally collect sampling of traces. And what we see customers do is we say sort of a central collector from the trace collection point of view. They add all the metadata, they run the Hotel collector, and then they can sample the traces. So quite a few customers will ingest just enough 200 responses to get automatic KPIs in the platform and anomaly detection for the journeys, and then they'll automatically flip to sending all 100% of all the errors and their corresponding tag logs. Okay, gives you a really nice view in the dashboards for the tracing, and allows you to really delve into your issues without the noise of all the 200s being there. Just enough 200 successful journeys to look at it properly. Okay. Bit about using IAC to configure sources. This is quite, if you don't know any Terraform, by the way, it's quite a confusing example, but don't worry about it. Okay. Now the resource on the left allows you to create the HTTP sources, and basically the for each is a loop through a map of data, and the map is in blue on the right. Okay. You can see the source categories are listed. Now, obviously the benefit here is you can do lots of things around setup in Sumo with the Terraform provider or the API. You can pull it through a CI/CD pipeline. You can de-risk changes. You can do pretty much all of the platform now through Terraform or ISC of some sort. Okay, I'd really recommend it. And I'd recommend it really early as well. From the start or from a point in time. I'd almost draw a line and say from now on we'll make sure all the sources are in Terraform, make sure all the sources are self-serve from the application teams. Okay, as part of your CI/CD. So there's lots of different ways of slicing IAC, as you know, but just be aware it's actually really easy to build sources, build collectors, build roles, build partitions, build SIM rules, build all sorts of things within the provider. And you can do non-prod split for testing. You can do business logic in here. For instance, you can do generic monitors in here and split non-prod and prod and have different thresholds, etc. Different teams being sent the connections and the alerts. So there's all sorts of things you can do in the code, but just beware. Lots of people don't use it still. Lots of people do, especially the new customers. So yeah, really, really useful to get looking at that and to install that and to look at how you build things with Terraform and ISC. Any issues, speak to support or speak to your TAEs or your account team, and we can offer some advice on the layouts and how to do it. Okay, let's go to pre-built apps and dashboards. Let's look at how we look at what we see in the customer base. So we see a lot of ingestion, obviously, but we don't see too many people using all the dashboards and all the apps that they could. Now I'm going to say apps are free. They are free. Okay. See the little bottom left. So Flex license is slightly different. Old licensing, all searches are free because we're charging licensing on ingest. Flex licensing we charge on scan. So be aware of that slight difference, but nothing to worry about. So yeah, install the apps, look at your source collection, and we'll go through it in a minute. look at your source collection, see how you might be able to use an app. The apps all have best practices in them. So for Apache, for instance, or all the AWS or GCP or Azure, you will see most of the panels you would have built yourself. And it's a much quicker and easier way to build queries fast. Yeah, obviously we've got Copilot, we've got IntelliSense coming, we've got lots of things that help you build a query. But I'll show you how to rip a query and rip a panel out of a dashboard in a minute, which will save you lots of time.
Andy, I don't know if I like you telling them this. I've never written a query on my own, I don't think. Even as a sales engineer on enterprise deals, I have stolen everything I can find from other
Yeah,
people who are smarter than me.
yeah, same for me. Yeah, that's exactly why I like say just use the apps because they are so good. Yeah. Um, so yeah, as I say, you can review your gestures. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Reuse the existing queries and then add them to your own dashboards, customize them, change them using as a starting point, correlate across log sources. Yeah. Build business dashboards and just rip panels out of infrastructure, out of SDO, out of KPIs and SLO dashboards. You can rip any type of data out. It's just a search and then put them on your own dashboards. Okay, so let me just show you dashboarding and go through that. Wait a minute. So collection, obviously look at your sources. Some will be obvious, some won't be. For instance, you GitHub, okay, well you just go, right, have in the app catalog, we've got a GitHub app. Let me have a look. GitHub. Oh, yes, we have. Okay, so next gen app. Okay, so just a quick update on the difference. Next gen, our latest generation, they are an install once upgrade sort of install, which is easy. And they're all parameterized, so any team can use them. Classic apps are more of a install them per environment, per team, per structure. We're gradually moving everything over to next gen, so you'll see lots every month there's changes to the app types, and you'll see them gradually be moved over. The other benefit of next gen apps is they come with monitors usually as well, so you don't even have to write the monitors. Sometimes you can just rip the monitors as well and install them straight away. Okay, so let me show you, take you through how to look at queries, how to look at the things we need. 2 seconds. Um, yeah, cool. Okay, so app catalog, you'd find an install of app. I won't do it in here because our environment, but basically you'd install the app. It asks you some questions. Just so you know how to install an app, please look at the documentation if you haven't installed it before or if it's a new version. If you have installed an app already and there's a new version, you'll see a little upgrade icon come up here and you can just upgrade it if you've got the right permissions. The documentation for all these apps tell you how to collect the data and also gives you an overview of all the dashboards themselves. So it gives you a step-by-step guide on how to install the data, how to test the data that's coming in, how to do any, if it's a SaaS, if it's a cloud, it gives you both sides of how to set it up. Okay, so you can then work your way through it. Yeah, I won't go through all of this, but this is how you do it. It's really straightforward. And again, if there's any issues, you can let us know. So yeah, app catalog. We go to library, they come into next gen apps, come into installed apps. And I think from where the best thing is you can install as many as you want. As say, for the old licensing, it's free to install and free to search. For the new licensing, it is flex based, so scan based. So the amount of data you're scanning is what you'll get charged credits on. Let me just look through the examples. I thought I had a load of examples for you. Yeah, I did. Okay, cool. So there's a mixture here. I'm going to jump around a little bit, okay, and the go to the business ones first. So obviously we have lots of dashboards in here where you can look at things like infrastructure, and you can look at things like SLOs. You can look at SaaS products for WAF, for CI/CD, and all those sorts of things. Yeah. But what you really want to do at the end of that is for your specific team or your specific business case, you want to be able to pull together a customized dashboard based on things that are important to you. So we see a lot of infrastructure, but we don't tend to see too many application team-based or product owner sort of based. So there's lots of examples here where you can see, various different ways of bringing panels together through searches from different sources, that allow you to rip data out of different places. And as I said, if you find an infrastructure, find a collector. We've got an app for install the app. Yeah. So for instance, if we've got, say, AWS, we've got DynamoDB. Okay. And you can see the panels that get installed automatically. Okay. These are the parameters, so you can slice and dice this panel however you want. You can change the time, obviously. But what you can also do, and what we'd recommend, as I said, is if you want to, do anything with these, they're just a log search. Okay, so yep, perfect. Okay, and you can see a little dashboard I've created here. Nothing on it at the moment. Yeah. And you can see I can just add that to the dashboard. Okay. And as simple as that to rip panels out and searches out and add them to your own customized dashboard. You can also do that in code. It's a little bit harder, but you can make these dashboards up. There's as many panels and searches from lots of different other dashboards. And as I said, you haven't had to write any code. You've literally ripped what you want, found one that looks similar to what you need, change it, and then add it. Okay. What you can also do is then you can correlate across different sources. So for instance, if you've got a workload that has a SaaS-based WAF, it has a CDN, again, SaaS-based, could be, Cloudflare, could be all any of them, could be, exactly that, could be AWS CloudWatch, CloudFront. You can glue panels for your journey through each stage. So you can do, WAF to CDN, you can do API gateway or a load balancer. You can go to backend services. You can go to database, and you can easily just pull the panels in from that, which is what these other dashboards are showing you around here, where you've got in the journey, where your latency is, where a mixture of metrics, logs, traces, SLOs, so and deployments. So you can correlate across all the data, which we don't see. We see a lot of, obviously some customers doing all of this really good. Some are just doing bits. Some teams, even within the same customer base, are doing just some of it. So a mixture, but definitely there's stuff that's easy to do that with a little bit of time you can do without too much effort. Okay. You can also do stuff like, dashboard stuff with parameters in code. Okay, so you can build your features in your CI/CD pipelines, and you can tag an almost generic dashboard with a parameterization for that team into the CI/CD pipeline. Okay, so you build the feature and turn up with a new dashboard at the same time, so you can instantly get observability. So that's another thing that I'd recommend doing. Is there any questions, David, in there?
There are no questions, but I would like to add for career advancement, when you steal dashboards and set things up, you don't have to tell anybody that you did that. You can just take credit for it like I do.
That is very true. So I'll show you how easy it is just to rip queries. And I'd say, don't get me wrong, we've got Copilot, we've got really good search engines, we've got IntelliSense, Query Assist, we've got all sorts of stuff that helps you build a query. But if something's already done for one of your collectors, one of your sources of logs or metrics, then just make use of it and rip and change the query, put it in your own dashboard, convert it to a monitor. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Okay, alerting and monitoring best practices. I can't remember what year we brought out monitors. I know it was when I was a customer, so they've been out for a while. We've got scheduled searches as well. I've put the link right at the bottom for the differences between scheduled searches. They're both fine to use. Okay. Some of us prefer monitors, some prefer scheduled searches. There's definitely use cases for both, and you'll mostly find in every Sumo account, there's a mixture of both. Okay. What I like about monitors is, especially for services like AWS or things like that, you can build generic monitors to cover a lot of your infrastructure services. Okay, and I'll show you an example of that in a minute. The generic monitors can do things like, if you've got, say, Amazon SQS, the simple message queue, okay, the best practice for Amazon SQS is to build a dead letter queue, okay, that the SQS messages, if any can't be processed, get put to, so you don't block the pipeline of the pub sub model. Okay, now what you want to do with those is they should always be empty, your dead letter queues, across all your environments, all your regions, all your accounts. And if they're not, there's been a processing issue, a message can't be processed. Okay, so you want to know about that quite quickly, because it obviously means you've got a bug or you've got some bad data or something like that. So you can make generic error messages and monitors that will just keep an eye on this for you from a top down, like a platform engineering view or an SRE view or a team view. And allows you to, almost in a true DevOps world, be able to offer coverage for the generic sort of services that you shouldn't error in that way and give you early warning. Okay, really simple. One or two monitors can cover off all your whole estate in the cloud or unhosted. Okay, we do this by adding alert grouping. Okay, so you can alert group and split the states out of the alerts by region, by any of the metadata in this search. Okay, what it allows you to do is say you say, scan these SQS dead letter queues for the last 5 minutes. Tell me if there's an error, if any have got queue messages in. Okay, so if say you've got 100 and 5 have got messages in, you'll get 5 alerts. Okay, and they can all individually recover once you've replayed the messages and fixed the problem with the service that's trying to pull messages off. That can be running off 1 alert or 2 alerts. I'd recommend splitting non-prod and prod if you've got an environments process that goes through from dev to, say, prod. That way you can test different approaches to the monitors without affecting live and production. Okay, I'm going to show you one of these in a minute. I'd also make sure you use connections in the platform. You can obviously do direct webhooks. You can connect to Slack, but we've also got connections now. So, you can group like queues into connections and Slack integrations or Teams integrations or Jira integrations into connections. You can then reference them from various different places in the platform very easily. So again, definitely look at connections. We spend time, people are sending direct to webhooks, or they're not using connections, which makes it easy to set up. So again, I definitely recommend that. The other thing, any query now, you can pretty much right click and create a monitor or an SLO from. Okay, so really easy to create a monitor from a search. Just right click and it's pretty much there. And we've also got, I also see people not using alert response much. Now alert response, I'll show you it in a minute. Really good, like landing page, for instance. Okay, really great starting point, gives you a load of information about what's happened, what's happening around the platform in different places, anything that's correlated to that, any log errors, with some data science backed stuff in there as well. So we'll talk through that and I'll show you that. How are we doing for time? Pretty good. Okay. Alerting. Okay, cool. Quick view on alerting. Yep. Okay, cool. Okay, so this is an example alert that I created earlier, example monitor, sorry. Let me just edit it for you. Okay, so again, this is the dead letter one. So we've got, it's a metrics query. Okay, could be any of these different types, anomaly detection, static. This is a static one, could be an SLO, could be logs. So basically, we are looking at the number of messages received in any account, in any region, in the SQS namespace, and for any queue name across all of those for dead letter. Okay, we're going to count it and sum it by those four things, and then we're going to group it by the same four things. Okay, it's quite confusing unless you see the documentation for it, and then it makes sense what the grouping is doing. So I'd recommend you look at that. But what allows you to do is we will then get a split alert and a split state, as I said, by account, by region, by namespace, by queue. So we can individually recover them. They can auto recover. We can fix them individually. We can send the alerts to different teams. Okay. What we can then do is also change the naming so that it pulls the fields in as well. So we can create the alert to be unique enough that we know what it is, and we can send notifications. I haven't done on this; it's just going to the alert list, but we can send the notifications to any connection, webhook, any of the main incident management tools, and we can also run automation off the back of it, which again, not many people are using yet, but it's not in. I didn't put it in the slides, but there's an easy way of adding an automated playbook to the bottom of these as well now. So let me just show you that running. I ran it earlier, and you can see it's critical. Okay, and you can see this is the alert list. The alert came in, and it's found it when it ran. There's going to be one error, but you can see it's from from this dead letter queue. It's from that account. It's from that namespace, and it's in that region. Okay, and if we click on it. This is the alert response page. Okay, you get an alert response URL in the payload. So if you aren't pushing the alert response URL into your webhook for Slack or for Teams or for any of the alerting tools, then please do, because you'll then go into this page, which is really good. Okay, you can see the error, you can see what happened, you can see a time series of what the queue was, and you can see some context throughout the alert. Let me show you also a logs one. Okay, with logs one, you get a slightly different output. You get the histogram of when it happened. You also get any issues with any other alerts in the period of time. Okay, you can see the history as well, how often it happens. And you can see what other alerts were caused or happened during that period of time. You can resolve it, you can open it, you can run a playbook. You also get a load of extra stuff in a logs alert around helping you find the needle in a haystack. Yeah, so you'll start seeing things like summaries. You'll start seeing fluctuations compared to normal in the logs. It's partly to do with the log reduce and the log pattern analysis that we're running on it. Okay, and it lets you jump into finding it easier in log search. You also got a new button up here which people don't see, which is opening Copilot. Okay, so you can now triage these issues in Copilot. Okay, Copilot is our LLM-based helper. Okay, so write in natural language. It will recommend some things around the context of the source category, and you can see that basically as part of this alert, I've told it to just analyze the frequency of errors over time and tell me what times and what the messages were. Okay, so you can really delve really quickly into analyzing the errors and see where things have happened or whether they've happened before, whether some other alerts caused the issues.
Hey, Andy, we
Yeah,
actually we just had a question pop up that actually goes
yeah,
back a little bit.
yeah, go on.
I'll read it to you. Going way back, sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
Why, when looking at surrounding messages, does it not keep some of the other query details like selecting from the fields list, single element, or top values does? For example, if I have a namespace and then select something like an IP from the fields list, then I
Yeah,
get the namespace plus IP in a new tab for my search. But when I
yeah,
click down arrow next to the host IP in the message log and select plus minus 5 minutes, I just get logs with that IP and
you
lose the
lose it.
namespace.
Yeah, so I've that is quite good timing actually. I've put a feature request in for that 2 weeks ago to keep the context on surrounding messages. Two other customers have asked for that. If we take customer details, I can add that to the feature request, and we can tag that with them.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And guys, with those kind of stuff, don't forget, like, keep in touch with whoever your account manager people
Yeah,
are. If there's something that you really want, I mean, obviously we have to build things and fix things, but we're a customer driven company. we're
Yeah.
trying to, put a percentage of resources towards making sure that the field requests are getting done as well. So feel free to stay open and in communication with whoever your rep is.
Yeah, and with my customer hat on, I can vouch for that. I was a launch partner for AWS Observability, which we're going to talk about in a minute, and also the monitors alert grouping was one of a feature that I got on the back of as well as a customer, and helped with the beta for. So definitely we do listen to customers, and you can tailor how some of these features are built, and it does happen. I can vouch for it definitely. Yeah, it's good. Okay, that's monitoring and alerting. As I say, there's some things there. Obviously, these are massive sections in the platform, and there's lots of documentation and training specifically on monitoring, alerting, observability. Okay, so this is just my list, as we said at the start, of tricks and tips, things I see, that the way I tend to do things around the platform. Not necessarily all right, but you've got to find your own way. But definitely, there's a lot more training as well available if you need it. And obviously the documentation is very good for all this stuff. So let me bring back the slides. Okay. Notice the time, we've got 13 minutes. So let me crack on. DevOps and observability gaps. Okay. AWS Observability, if you're using AWS, I know not everyone is, so yeah, we won't spend too much time on it. But if you are using AWS and you're not using AWS Observability, I think you're missing a trick, but I would say that, as I'm quite biased. As I said, I was a launch partner customer for this, spent a lot of time on it, and I love it. I'll be honest, I love it. I think it's great. So yeah, once it's installed and you install it separately by Terraform or CloudFormation, basically it will give you a really nice way of correlating all your CloudTrail, your application logs, your load balancing logs, infrastructure logs, and your metrics in one lovely screen, which is all joined up and glued together. Okay, so it helps find the needle in the AWS haystack. But it's also really good for different team types. So for SREs, for DevOps, for SecOps, for DevSecOps, for security analysts, it's really easy to triage issues using it. What we find as well is most customers have already got the logs ingested. So all they need to do is get the metrics ingested from CloudWatch, and then they're good to go once they've installed it. Okay, so I'll show you in a minute. The other thing on the slides, CI/CD data ingestion goes along the lines of what we talked about earlier around correlating different log sources, different metric sources, and putting them onto one dashboard. If you can get your CI/CD data in from your SaaS platforms, from your hosted collectors on your hosted CI/CD tools, your GitLabs, your GitHubs, your Bitbuckets, or whatever they are, okay, and we support most of them, then what we can do is we've got a product app called SDO, Software Development Optimization, and that will automatically show you all your DORA metrics around your performance as a DevOps team, or as a high performance team. We've also got a load of apps for CI/CD which really make it easier to see the life cycle of an application, deployments, failures, Jira tickets, product ownership stuff. So there's a lot of different log sources there and event sources that we can hook into from a business point of view as well as a tech point of view. And let me quickly show you some of those. We have 10 minutes left. Okay, AWS Observability, as I said, mixture of panels. It's just an app. There is a dark mode as well, just not on my screen at the moment. Same as everything else as an app, it's different types of searches. This is a CloudTrail log search using our geolocation. Other thing that I haven't got on the slides is people forget we've got geolocation and we've got threat feed built into the platform. Okay, so definitely make use of those. You'll see a lot of the apps, especially the next gen ones, have got threat feeds built in and also got geo in a lot of the panels as well. But you can run these operators for geo and for threat feed your own in any panel, any search. So definitely make use of those. Give you lovely diagrams like this. You can also do some cool stuff around that, around connections from the same ASN and things like that. So there's a lot of depth to some of these operators as well that you won't see on just basic panels. I'd say it's a snapshot of all your AWS environment by all accounts, all regions. Okay, you can see all your main services covered. For any services that aren't on here, by the way, we have standalone AWS apps, things like Bedrock, things like that aren't on here, aren't the most used services. We've got standalone apps for all the others. You can see, for instance, in US East 1, I know this is a demo environment, we deliberately break and cause errors in the logs, but you can see there's 904 Lambda errors. So for an SRE team, that's a really good thing of where to look first. It's a really good thing. There's Dynamo errors, 839. Why have we got that many? You start looking at what you're going to check first. Okay, performance metrics around memory, things like that. Notifications. Okay, well, we've tried to deliver SNS. That's not right. We need to fix that. Okay, what you can then do is you can delve into the detail. Okay, and we have lots of views around different types of errors across different APIs, etc. And it goes through the same for all the other resources. Okay, so it's a layer of SRE performance, capacity management, security, application engineering. Yeah, it's useful for lots of different tools. So definitely, as I say, most of the log sources will mostly be ingested if you're AWS. You'll just need to ingest some metrics. You don't have to ingest the metrics. You could just use it without the metrics, but you'll see some panels missing and vice versa. But yeah, definitely have a look at it. There's also supports ECS, but there's also a Kubernetes version as well, separate. So yeah, definitely have a look at that if you're not using it. And then I talked about CI/CD. I've just picked GitHub. There's lots of different options. Okay, push the data to us. We can visualize it. We can alert on it. We can correlate it across your backend services. Okay, I won't go into too much detail because we're running out of time. But yeah, make use of these sources. And then once you've got all the sources in, all the tickets, all the CI/CD pipeline data, all your Git data, okay, we can run SDO. Okay, we can tell you how high performing your team is. If you don't know about DORA metrics, then it came from Google. Please look it up. You can search for it. Good way of working out how you're performing as a DevOps team. But you can see this is out of the box. You install it, it pulls all the sources in, it tags all the sources, and then it just gives you lots of different options around. This isn't the only dashboard, there's lots of them. Okay. Right, 5 minutes. Quickly, last page, and then we should hopefully have time for a few questions. Just a quick slide on access management and security. We have launched a load of access management and security new features over the last 4 or 5 months. Okay, so I just wanted to quickly cover those off as customers might not be using them yet, or might have new use cases that they mostly want to do in the best efficient way going forward. Okay, so we've now got, if you've got a multi-org Sumo account, we've got multi-org single sign-on. Okay, so you can set it up once at the top level org and push it down to the child org so it's set up once and it all works lovely. We've also got skin provisioning. It came out a couple of weeks ago. So if you, at the moment with single sign-on, if you remove the user from your IDP, your Okta or your Entra ID, you will keep the user in Sumo. Now with skin provision, it will disable the user in Sumo for you, okay, automatically. So your compliance, your leavers, joiners process is de-risked. So definitely that's something to look at. The other thing we've now got is service accounts. Can't remember exactly when that came out. It was a couple of weeks ago, 3-4 weeks ago. Service accounts are an easy way of grouping, things like API keys. Okay, so if you've got a new use case that needs an API key, I'd recommend creating a service account and then adding an API key with least priv. So we've now got least privilege API keys as well. That combination again is really good for audit. So yeah, best practices going forward, I think, for API keys will be don't assign them to a person, assign them to a service account, manage it centrally, automate it with Terraform if you want. We've also got API key rotation now as well, came out I think last week. Okay, so again, that helps when you're CI/CD'd. If you've got a compliance reason where you need to flip a key, again, we've now got rotation. Okay, so those 4 or 5 things really do help with the compliance around user access and Sumo access. I think that is it.